The debate over the greatest tennis player of all time is notoriously fierce, and usually we try to solve it with simple math. For years, the finish line was defined by Roger Federer. His 20 Grand Slam titles stood as the absolute benchmark of the sport. Then came Novak Djokovic, who pushed past that ceiling to set the current all-time men's record at 24. 24 is a larger number than 20. If we treat this strictly as an arithmetic problem, the conversation stops there. But tallying the final trophy count ignores how those numbers were actually constructed. These figures represent a lifetime of physical and mental engineering. To properly weigh these records, we have to compare two completely different models of career dominance. On one side, we have Federer's model of highly concentrated, unassailable peak dominance. On the other, we have Djokovic's strategy of extreme longevity and all-surface versatility. Relying solely on the final integer fails to capture the magnitude of how an athlete actually controlled their era. To figure out what these numbers really mean, we need to look at how they were built. Between 2004 and 2007, men's tennis operated under a single authority. During his absolute prime, Federer reached 10 consecutive Grand Slam finals. Operating at that level requires a margin of error so small that a single bad afternoon over 3 years would have broken the run. This chart tracks weeks at number 1, the tour's ultimate measure of daily, uninterrupted dominance. Look at this massive plateau. Federer held the top ranking for 237 consecutive weeks. Nobody else in history has come close to holding the tour hostage for that long without a break. He achieved this specific athletic velocity by mastering the tour's fastest surfaces, executing a hyper-aggressive style that took time away from opponents. That efficiency translated directly to grass, where he secured an all-time record 8 titles at Wimbledon. It worked equally well on fast hard courts, driving a run of 5 consecutive titles at the US Open. The trade-off of this velocity model is burnout and generational shift. When you exert an extreme early peak, younger rivals inevitably mature, adapt to your speed, and eventually break those consecutive streaks, slowing your accumulation in the back half of your career. Djokovic took a different route. His career relies on strategic pacing and endurance, rather than an early, unbroken sprint. In 2017, an elbow injury forced him off the tour. For a player entering his 30s, a severe joint issue traditionally signals the end of their absolute prime. Instead of fading, he rebuilt his mechanics. He went on to win 11 more major titles after returning from that injury, pushing deep into his mid-30s. We can see the difference when we overlay his ranking history on this same chart against Federer's. Djokovic doesn't have this single massive plateau. Instead, he produces multiple peaks that extend much further along the timeline, ultimately securing the all-time record of 428 total weeks at number 1. He lacked the continuous run of Federer's mid-2000s, but by grinding through multiple eras and adapting to new generations, this accumulation model secured the absolute highest total records. Grand Slams tell part of the story, but to measure true all-surface completeness, we look at the big titles. This category combines the 4 majors, the ATP Finals, the 9 Masters 1000 events, and the Olympics. This scorecard breaks down their victories across every mandatory high-level event on the tour. Djokovic is the only player to achieve a career Golden Masters, winning all 9 distinct Masters events and doing it at least twice, driving his big title count to a record 72. He also secured the final missing piece of his resume to complete the career Super Slam. That milestone was locked in with his Olympic gold medal, checking the very last box available in the sport. Achieving this requires elite performance year-round across clay, grass, and hard courts. Those surfaces demand vastly different biomechanics, forcing the human body to absorb severe, varying friction through the knees and elbows. Winning the triple career Grand Slam and sweeping the Masters events is a massive physical risk. It requires a player to expose their body to injury to prove all-surface mastery, rather than conserving energy as a surface specialist. We can now map these 2 distinct approaches to see how volume and velocity answer the greatest of all-time debate. This quadrant chart measures our 2 philosophies. The vertical axis tracks total volume and longevity, while the horizontal axis tracks peak and consecutive dominance. Based on his 10 consecutive finals and 237-week uninterrupted reign, Federer plots on the extreme right for peak dominance. If your philosophical definition of greatness is absolute invincibility and unbroken mastery during a designated prime, Federer's 20 titles serve as your definitive blueprint. With his 428 total weeks, 72 big titles, and 24 majors, Djokovic plots at the absolute ceiling of the volume axis. If you define greatness by ultimate statistical volume, all-surface versatility, and the ability to outlast 3 different generations, his 24 titles represent your standard. The objective math favors 24 as the highest absolute ceiling in tennis history. But fixating strictly on that final integer misses the structural masterpiece of the 237-week sprint that built the 20.